just see it right away. It's your quality.
But also too, it's a bottomless pit because there's always nicer, more expensive stuff. So it's like at some point you gotta be like, all right, we gotta draw the line somewhere.
And with technology too, I feel like once you buy it, there's gonna be newer version.
It's like 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, and then you're replacing or.
And then if you have like flashy eye syndrome, where it's like the new flashy thing comes out and you want it, so then you're like, shit.
That's why I have to try to stay out of the content equipment now, because I'm a very addictive personality.
Right.
And it's like I want the nicest of everything. So like when I buy stuff, it's like I'll do it with the cars, I'll do it with everything else, but it's like the camera stuff I keep chasing, but it's a diminishing return kind of space sometimes. But then we have these like content guys we have to reel back in.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's like, does gear make our content better?
We did see a guy use a camera from like the 1990s, well, like some of the most crispy photos. I'm like, I mean, if it can be done with that,
Yeah.
but he knew how to use a camera,
Right.
very, very, very well. And that's when someone's like, we need this camera to get better photos. I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna show you something. You let me know.
Right.
I'm like, this is how you do it correctly. I'm like, this dude's camera, he had to turn with his hand. I'm like, there's nothing automatic about it. He's like, oh. I'm like, so I'm just saying, with what we have, we bought the nicer stuff that he had. It can be done.
Right.
What's your last name?
Nold.
Nold. Okay. Go by Nate or Nathan.
Either. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Nate, I do want to let you know the soundboard sits on top of a white Yeti over here.
I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the bucket over there in the corner. I was very appreciative of that.
Perfect.
Good job.
Alright, we rolling everywhere?
Is Dre sitting on the bucket?
Yeah, apparently.
Are you drinking an NA beer?
Yeah.
Whoa! Wow.
That's a good start.
And welcome back.
That's the intro right there. That's the intro.
Well, I guess we're back on the M3 podcast. Logan's drinking NA beers. We got Dre on the golf cart over there. Do we know why? We don't. We got Alex, we got Nate. Thank you for being here. This is actually going to be, rarely do we have podcasts that we have somebody come on that I don't know a whole lot about. We just met tonight, so Alex is trying to take over the podcast.
When we get a time.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to draw a line somewhere where there's no one else allowed from Missouri Western. So
We got good people on.
After the next year and a half, you should be covered.
yeah,
We've actually gotten every graduate.
we got another Missouri Western grad. Makes me kind of throw up when I say that. But so when did you two meet?
Oh boy, I got to Missouri Western in 2014, and I probably pretty quickly. I rushed the same fraternity that Alex was in, and yeah,
Yeah, right off the bat when you got there, yeah.
Yep.
Just came over from that. So you guys as old as Alex?
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm a few years younger.
Why we just always gotta default? We gotta default to age. There's so many older people at MMG now, to where why is it that I'm still the default old guy?
I think there's two.
There's more than two.
Is he the old guy?
He is the old guy.
Oh,
We have two Alexes at the company. We have cool Alex, we have old Alex.
okay.
I did endorse that.
Okay.
He is pretty cool.
He is old.
So he's pretty cool and he gets pretty old.
Yeah.
Could have defaulted to the cool guy, but alright.
No, so when you guys get to college, you guys rush the same fraternity. Were you guys similar majors? Anything? I don't even know what it was your major.
I was in PR and then he was in business.
Okay. So were you guys in similar classes or anything, or was it strictly just kind of outside?
Well, due to my age,
that was actually a stupid question on my part. Yeah.
I was already pretty
8 years
advanced
before.
Yeah.
in my 5-year term there at Missouri Western, so no, there was not a whole lot of crossover there. But fraternity and stuff like that, we were always around each other.
Gotcha. So what made you pick the business route?
I've always just kind of been interested in business. When I was in high school, I started a mobile car detailing operation that I did in the summertime. And I think the old saying is, if you don't know what you're going to do, pick business. And I was kind of undecided for a little while because I knew that business was versatile. And then probably end of sophomore, beginning of junior year, I decided that this was what I wanted to go into, although still not 100% sure what I wanted to do with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's where. So funny enough, we started everything out with detailing business. So MMG was DBA'd under a detailing business when it started.
Okay.
So, but it's, I think that there is, I think getting your feet wet into business, it's a business model that's very easy to generate cash flow, that there's not a lot of overhead.
Right.
There's not, it's a very plus and minus game. Accounting side is very easy. I think that's a lot of times too when you get into different business. I think sometimes starting off on a business model that's not too overly complex from an operational standpoint. I think there's a lot of times like I had no earthly idea what went into the marketing world and we jumped in and sank like rocks in the space in the early days. I was like, I don't know shit about any of this stuff. After progressing forward, I'm like, okay, we got to start trying to figure this out. But did you do the mobile detailing through college?
Yes.
So
Yep.
you go through college, you're working on a business degree. What does that progression look like to the end of college? Like what made you want to take the next step out of college? Like where did you? I know a lot of times in college you're kind of like, where am I going? Like what's happening?
Well, so I believe you guys had Isaac Collins on previously. Him and I have a very similar walk. We went through the same.
Part of his whole squadron that he's brought on.
My takeover.
Yeah.
We had a similar walk. I took the applied entrepreneurship class at Missouri Western, and in a nutshell, what that is your senior level business course. You present a business plan on an actual business, and then if you are the top student in that class, then you are awarded the rights to a franchise that Missouri Western is partnered with. At the time when I went through it was Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. Same with Isaac, it was Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. And I remember, I didn't know I wanted to do that right away, but the lady that runs the class, she came and presented to one of our business courses. I was like, man, that sounds pretty cool. So, I took the class and I won my senior year and shipped off to California. And I'm from Savannah, Missouri, very small town.
Big transition.
To the Bay Area.
I mean,
To the Bay Area of all places too.
Yeah.
Sitting in Savannah, you could have just went northbound a little bit. You could have moved out to Maryville.
Hey, Missouri Western was giving out some scholarships.
I will say that with Isaac on also, I think the business program, what you guys had there was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is extremely unique.
Yeah.
There's only one other school that's tried to replicate it, and it didn't work. The students that came through it, I think they did it. They awarded 2 stores, and both failed. So our program started in 2009, and that guy now has 14 stores in Colorado. So there's some really strong success stories. Some have not made it. It's business. It's real life. We go all across the country to different cities, and everyone has different circumstances they have to face.
But I also think in business, we talk about all the time that we run into a lot of people that aren't meant to be business owners.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that aren't willing to take the steps fast enough of what's needed to be done.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time that they think because we just move really fast that I have all the answers. I'm like, it's far from that.
Absolutely.
I'm like, the thing is, there's no power above me to go ask for, like, I think our whole lives were at a spot where it's like, okay, we can ask our parents this, or we can ask a teacher this, or somebody, a higher power to go to ask questions.
Right.
And I think that was what I really like kind of struggled with in the beginning was like, okay, I'm not sure on this, but it's like you just have to step.
Yeah.
And as we progress with more people, it's sometimes people don't agree with my decisions, but I'm like, present me a better one.
Right.
Either way, we gotta make a decision. So like, one of us is gonna be right.
And there's been times where as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you run into a spot that you're picking the choice between 2 shitty decisions. You're like, I don't like this one, I don't like this one, but I don't know another one.
Right.
So it's like you're stepping forward with something that you don't even really want as the outcome, but it's like, you know that's needed to move the ship forward.
Right.
So it's just, do you think that has something to do with the stores that succeeded to the stores that didn't? Like when you're getting one of those locations, how much is plugged in? Like how plug and play is it for you taking that on? I don't think we talked to Isaac about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there are just some people that are kind of have the chops for it naturally. I mean, you can be a great chef, but you might not be able to run a restaurant. There's just so much more that goes into it. With a company like Rocky Mountain, it is a franchise, so there are guidelines and systems that are already in place, which is helpful for a new business owner, especially at 22,
Yeah.
with no money and no experience. I don't want to say they hold your hand, but they really help guide you, and of course you pay a royalty, so there's a cost to it, but you've got a brand name that's recognized nationally, you've got a system in place that works, and then for me, the biggest thing was learning how to hire, train, and retain employees. That, as I'm sure you probably know too. So,
Yeah.
and I've had to make decisions that I didn't like, especially during COVID times in California. Is either I don't like this, or I don't be open.
Yeah.
Those are my options. So, yeah, I mean, just like Isaac, he was built for it.
Yeah.
And the ones that have succeeded, I would say 95% of the ones that have succeeded are built for it. There were a couple great entrepreneurs that fell victim to some bad situations with landlords, cities they were in, and just things that they couldn't overcome.
Yeah.
And COVID took out a couple of them as well, just bad timing.
Yeah.
So,
That's when I stepped out to open MMG, it was 2 days before the whole country closed down.
oh no.
So I was sitting about 72 hours after I left my last job, sitting in my house. I'm like, all right, really messed up.
Yeah.
I'm like, this was not a good move. I'm like, and my wife's sitting there, and she's like, what did we do here?
Oh.
I'm like, I don't know. And Dre's working. He's like, dude, I'm like printing money up here. I'm like, fuck you, dude. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a strange time, but also I think at that time it put me in a spot that I'm like, am I going to let the circumstance define me on who I
Absolutely.
am and how I move forward? And I'm like, if I overcome this and we build something in this time, I'm like, it's going to make it a lot easier on the backside when we're moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was, and I also think we've always just been very kind of agile in what we do as a business and how we operate. That I told Dre, I was like, we need to change our offering. Like the offering needs to be different. And understanding.
We've also taken on jobs during those times where it's like numbers aren't looking great, so we did some odd-end jobs of photo inventory for dealerships that really helped cash flow the company for a year and a half.
Right.
Did the job suck? Yes. But it's like the money was phenomenal.
But we set things up to cash flow the company to pretty much learn marketing in the front side. That we were building a plan to try to get a takeoff.
Right.
And I think we ran it off the end of the runway a few times. I just started trying to rebuild, go back the other way. But it was just like, we were figuring out ways, like we figured out we can make money. Like we can figure that part out and doing different things. But how did we make money doing the marketing side?
Right.
Like that's what we wanted to grow. And we're like, once we get that launched, then we can offload all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, even not too long ago when Alex joined, that was what, like June?
Yeah.
Like a little over 6 months ago, when he came on, I told him, I was like, operational side, we're a fucking disaster. I was like, I'm gonna sugarcoat it, like anything. You guys like ask Alex when we were sitting there when we were going over that side of it. I'm not an operations guy. I can make sense of it all. I'm not great at like getting it implemented.
Okay.
I can come up with ideas. I'm like, hey, we need to change this. This is the problem's broken. This is what we need to do to fix it. Or how can we fix this? How can we make this better? How can we be more built for scale? And that's where Alex came in. It was just like, in the front side, he actually didn't tell me at all that he had any of this operations background. And we ended up just kind of figuring out. He's like, can I help on this? I was like, yeah, be my guest, bro.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm like, wow, that goes a lot better.
It's kind of like the first month, it's like, hey, each week you're going to do something different. Let us know what you want to do.
Right.
Like where you see you're most beneficial. I think it was like
Wait,
a week and a half in, he's like, so, operations, I think that's it. And we're like, that doesn't directly correlate to like profit. And then we're like, actually it does way more than we ever realized.
Yeah. But so when you get in and you plug into store number 1, California, what are the thoughts going through your head when you're like rolling into California and you're like, hey, I'm just uprooting my life from Savannah, Missouri, and I'm going to California?
Yes, I competed, presented my final plan on Friday, June 1st, and we moved that next Monday. I didn't know until whatever 1:30, 2 o'clock that afternoon if we were moving or not. So it was a very fast turnaround. Part of the program that April, it's over spring break. The program will fly you or transport you to, if you're a finalist, to the location. or they send you with another owner that's successful, and you do like a shadow week to see if, A, do I like this? Do I want to do this? And then the other owners from the program will evaluate those candidates as well and say, hey, Nathan did really good this week, or he might not be built for this, even though his business plan is a good read. Mine was a little unique. They sent me straight to the site, and I was the only finalist that made it through, so there was a good chance that I was going to be awarded one, but I still could have screwed it up. And I'll never forget the first time I flew into Oakland, the airport runway is here and the water's here, and it looked like we were about to land on the water. And then I was like, man, I'm not in the Midwest anymore. Yeah, it's wild. You know, area of about 8 million people, the traffic, everything is different. But nothing was really tying us back to the Midwest. And I say us as me and my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, moved out there with me, and yeah, we just took it on, try something different.
So that business plan, do you do it for that location?
Yeah, so they give you the balance sheets, the P&Ls, you can look at the lease, all the things, and you can present to the panel, what can I do to cut my costs? What can I do to increase sales? Here's my ideas, here's how I'm gonna do them, here's the numbers behind them, all the negotiations with the lease, if there's anything that need to be done, all that. So, I mean, it was very drinking from a fire hose type of class. Very, very hands-on.
So when you're rolling out there, when you roll up the property, is it ready to roll?
Yeah,
Or,
it's their existing stores. And typically what the program does is the benefactor, have you heard of Stephen Craig at all by chance? Their guys that
Yeah,
mentioned
Talking about them.
Yeah. So he's the benefactor for the Craig School of Business at Missouri Western. He has a relationship with the top level management at Rocky Mountain, and now they do more maintenance franchises. I'm sure you probably heard of them. They will find stores that are underperforming, and they're typically by older couples that are looking to retire or just miserable and want to get out. The store's not doing well, and they'll stick in a new college grad that's young and full of energy. So this store is identified as kind of one of those locations. The previous owner decided he didn't like it, jumped ship, moved to Seattle, hired a manager to run it from afar. Didn't go well, kind of thing. So it's, I guess you could say it's plug and play, but you're usually taking on a project. It's not a store that's just running on all cylinders right off the bat.
so that's what I was wondering, when you come in, if you happen to hire all staffing, if you have current staffing, if you're walking in like day one firing people that you don't want. Like,
Right. Well, usually, like, when I didn't know what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and retain everybody and then kind of weed out as I go, so operations can continue. Because if you just cut loose on everyone and it's day one, probably not going to go very well.
Which that's where it's like sometimes I see it with a lot of companies we walk in that I can spot cancer in a space pretty quickly.
Right.
And it's like a lot of times, like we've talked with people in the sales world. You'll have a bad sales manager for a group of sales guys at a car dealership, and I'm like, I don't care how much you spend on marketing, I don't care how much you spend on consultants to come in, you're not going to fix this problem until he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, and it's sad a lot of times because they're looking for an outside problem to an internal. They're looking for an outside solution to an internal problem
Yeah.
that they need to fix first, and that's where I think walking in, especially at that age, it was something that took me a while to get my feet under me to fire people,
Right.
and like, I felt bad, like,
Yeah.
but then as I progressed forward, I'm like, they're not putting in their effort, they're not putting what needs to be brought to the table. It's a disservice to everyone that works around me every day if I'm not firing those people.
Right.
That if I'm letting those people stay within the walls. So I think, was that something when you got there, how many people were on staff?
So the first store, the one that I got to the program, was a smaller operation. There were 4 people on staff, and 2 I retained, and 1 stuck with me all the way through the end. She was the first employee I ever had, and she was the last employee whenever I sold both my stores last December. And I was pretty fortunate. The 2 I kept were pretty good. They kind of got me going, but I mean, the first first couple months, it was open to close every day for me for the most part, trying to understand how to do things and operate this location and all that kind of stuff.
I think there's a lot of people who aren't willing to do that side of it also.
And that's, like I said, you can be a great chef, but you're not going to want to do the business side of things. And then not only am I working the floor and the retail side, but I've got payroll to do. I've got the rent to pay. I mean, I've got all the things to do on top of operating the store, getting to know the staff. So
And I think when you're working inside the business, I think it's crucial on the front side. But I think we also live in a day and age now that with social and TikTok and everything like that, you have these business owners that come out of left field. And it's this young business owner that's like, I'm never doing any of that. I gotta work on my business before I work in my business. I'm like, you don't have a business to work outside of yet.
Right.
I was like, when it's you and one other person, you don't work outside of it. You are employee of your own. Like, straight up. And I tried to pull myself out multiple times when the company wasn't big enough. I'm like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. I'm like, but it's trying to get to that level.
Right.
And I think I have a talk with younger entrepreneurs all the time. I'm like, your company is not big enough to work on your business all day, every day.
Right.
I was like, you have to build that trust and that respect to the people that are working around you too.
Right.
That I can jump on the camera and run with the guys every day. I can jump in the marketing side and run on the marketing side. I can do all the things in the company, but we did it for years.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like just one day I popped up and I'm like, I don't do any of it anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people think that that's the narrative that you get in business and they're never going to touch inside of it. And there's some big, huge money players that are older that have pockets that are unlimited and they can go find that manager that they give part of the cut to and they can just hire super deep and they can figure it out and they can problem solve as they go. They can burn a lot of cash to figure it out. There's those people, but most time the 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old that's out there trying to start a business and doesn't have just absolute endless capital.
Right.
That's trying to work on their business all the time. Like, you have to work inside of there for a while first.
And especially when I took over, the 2 girls that worked there had worked there longer than me because I didn't work. And so there was that earning that respect. And I kind of called it the CEO, the chief everything officer. I'd be the guy that was scrubbing the floors to show them that I'm not going to have you do something that I wouldn't do myself. I'll clean the bathrooms. I'll scrub the grout. You'll have to do it too. But I'm here to show you that I'm going to do everything that you're going to do as well. I'm not above you in any type of way in that regards.
And that's what I was going to say too, is that even today, right, and you've had a number of businesses done all this stuff. I mean, I'll go to the movie theater and, you know, I mean, there's multiple ways to get into it, but my thing is like, I'm always going to walk by his store because the firehouse is right next to it. So I'm like, I'm just going to park on this side. I just want to walk by and just poke my head by or whatever. I mean, I walk in there and I see him at the cash register. I'm like, man, it's the owner. Like, he's sitting here working the register, he's making sandwiches or whatever, and I'm walking back out and it's 10 p.m. and I look over there expecting it to be closed and he's like, yep, having a meeting with my guys. I'm like, yeah, you guys do this at 10 p.m. with a sandwich place? Like, all right, yeah. But it's always, every time I've gone in there and he's there, it's like, you wouldn't know that he owns the building, that he owns the entire operation. You just think he's another guy that's working there.
And I actually prefer it that way a lot of times. So, some customers that come in, I've got my name tag that says the owner on it. If anyone like really needs to talk to the owner, and they'll be like, oh, you're the owner? And I really got that a lot at 23, 24 years old in California.
I still get it a lot of times. Like, I mean, Dre and I've had it all the time. They're like, oh, your guys' dad owns the market. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. Like, and it's, I mean, we started it and I was like 25, 26, and it was, when we were starting, I think a lot of times it was hard to gain that respect in those rooms, to get that respect from the older business owner, because they don't respect until you've done it. They want to see the person that made it through those really hard times, those bleak times. Like, once you come out of those unforged waters, those unknown areas, and you're making it happen over and over and over again, like, then all of a sudden the respect comes in waves.
Right.
When a 40, 50-year-old business owner comes in our locations, I have a lot more respect.
Right.
When I was trying to have a lunch with him and there was a few of us working out of the basement, it's kind of hard.
Hey, office is full, we need to go have lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was just like, I could tell that it was an issue. But as we progressed, it's like, it's crazy how quick it's changed. And I still have people say I'm young, like I'll never be as old as Alex, but
when they actually ask who the owner is, they actually walk past Dane and they come to me and they're like, this old motherfucker is definitely the guy.
Can't be that child.
I'm gonna talk to the adult in the room.
But it was just funny, like how like locations change the narrative of the conversations, how just like all those like kind of little things are just making it work.
Right.
That then they're like, okay, he's legit.
Yeah.
Where I think we do live in a day and age that there's a lot of young people that go into business, and I talk about all the time, there's entrepreneurs and there's entrepreneurs. And it's like, if I would have had a different pathway of the entrepreneur world, I probably would have made a really good entrepreneur. Like, I'm not really that great at all these different things that come with this. Like I said, I was really good at losing money. I was really good at doing all these other things, but it's just like, it's a long pathway. I'm not a very patient person, so it's been the 4.5 years to get here. It's been fun. It's everything like that. My greatest accomplishment now is the amazing people I get to work around. Like, but they're all way smarter than me in their respected areas, and but it's also building that to where it's like, what does the future look like for them? And I also think as the one trait I think I have as an entrepreneur that's so valuable is my dreams are so big. That like when I tell most people just think I'm absolutely crazy. But the people that thought I was crazy 4 years ago, and they see where we're at now, they're like, okay, maybe he's not that crazy. Like, it's funny how people are starting to like formulate it together. They're like, what he's talking about, where they're going, like, that's going to become a reality. Like, and I think as that just progresses, I think you have to hold that vision. So when you talk about the retention of employment, and I don't really use the word employee ever. It's I work with everybody in here.
Yeah.
Nobody works for me. Like, I'm the lucky one in the room. Like, we live in a world where business owners are like, oh, they're lucky to have a job here. I'm like, if you have A players, that's not the case.
Right.
I go, you're lucky to be sitting at a table with A players to be working with you. And it's not for you, but with you. So what have you learned over your time on the retention side for employment?
I mean, we share that same. I never liked when people called me boss. I'd just say, hey, we're working together, kind of thing. Employee retention has kind of been the thing I pride myself the most in. I've always tried to put in such a positive work environment. I don't know if you've ever worked in a restaurant before, but I mean,
I have not.
I know we worked together at one.
We did.
There's some.
We skipped over that.
Yeah.
Oh, we were slinging wings.
Yep.
They just said same fraternity, paths crossed.
I was just pass cross.
We were rolling like 10 fight outs deep at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yep.
They put a fight out flag in a Buffalo Wild Wings that much. Like, we were that deep in there.
You helped make them pay rent.
Listen, they loved it.
I was the first one. I think you were probably like the second or
I
third.
was second or third.
Yeah.
I was in there, yeah.
We brought the Hive, Buffalo Wild Wings in St. Joe's. But no, like in restaurant environments specifically, there can be a lot of negativity, a lot of yelling, a lot of, I don't want to say degrading, but just very negative culture stuff. And trying to just remind people to have fun while they're at work, because my employee pool is probably a lot different than what you experience. I have a lot of college kids, high school kids. I do have some that are older than me. That's a little fewer and far between. But in California particularly, it was mainly high school and college girls. That's just kind of who works at a Rocky Mountain chocolate factory or an ice cream store. So just treating them well. We would always try to go do fun escape rooms together, take them to dinner sometimes, just as a way to get out of the work environment, just kind of get to know each other. And man, it was few and far between that we would lose people. And most of the time when we did, it was they're graduating high school and they're going off to college, or they're in college and they've got their big girl, big boy, whatever job at the time. It was extremely rare that we would lose someone that did not like the job, or even me having to fire. I think probably I maybe fired 5 people in California. I was just very fortunate in that regards. And I would always remind the staff, like, I'm very thankful that we are working together here. We are making these 2 places operate.
Yeah.
So, and which
Well,
allows.
and also too, like you had 2 at that time, so we kind of like skipped. We've been
Oh, yeah, sorry if I'm
timeline.
Yeah.
Timeline wise, we've been bouncing all over the place.
Timeline wise, Alex is normally a lot better than this, but we just.
Which went back to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, I don't know how we missed the Buffalo Wild Wings thing, because you really just.
I'm not running the show. I'm Mike 3 down here, so.
I mean, we worked with registration, Griffin Edge together. I mean, our job history is quite extensive.
Yeah,
As a matter
it's
of
like
fact.
I was his best man at his wedding.
Yeah, how do you guys pass from now? We just know each other.
There's a bunch of guys being dudes.
Now that we've been talking for a while, we've actually hung out for
Right.
4 years
Yeah.
straight, never left each other's
We were
side.
roommates for 5 years.
We spent a lot of time together
Yeah.
in college, yes.
Yep.
But then worked together.
Yep.
Then you had can we just bring us all back full circle? What was your timeline? Just stop by stop.
Okay. So first store when I was 22. The second one, 3 months after I took over the first store.
So what year was that?
2018.
What was your shoe size at the time?
Probably
Right over
there. 3 months after I took over, I'll never forget, a guy walks in and hands me his insurance card. Said, hey, I do the insurance for the guy that owns. There's a second location in my area about 20 minutes away from the first one. And whenever I moved out there, I had that, duly noted, I'd like to acquire that one day. He comes in and he says, I do the insurance for, his name's Todd, and he's thinking about selling. I was like, really? I could make a splash play here. I could be 23 years old at the time and 2 locations right out the gate. That'd be pretty cool. So like, okay, yeah, let's take his information down, blah, blah, blah. I go up there and meet with them. We talk numbers. I look at the place. I really, really wanted it. It was a very large store, much higher volume, this, that, and the other. It was actually a co-brand with Haagen-Dazs ice cream at the time.
Big fan of Haagen.
Yeah, me too. So, but the lease on that place was bad. He was paying astronomical rent, but there was a huge opportunity. That store's just not run well. He was one of those guys that was ready to retire. He had another business that he was more focused on. Long story short, negotiations for 1.5 years. COVID hit. I almost signed a lease. I was actually in Hawaii and got the lease sent to me to DocuSign in March 8th, I think, 2020. And something was just kind of telling me, let's just wait, because this COVID stuff was still kind of new at the time and whatnot. I was like, man, let's just hold off. And I'm glad I did. Was patient, and at the end of 2020.
See, that was a good thing you had that there, because if somebody sends me a DocuSign,
yeah,
well, it's getting signed and sent right back.
and to be fair, some of the owners before me that are doing very well, I of course counseled with them quite a bit. They helped talk me out of some of the. I was just ready to get going. I was ready to go fast.
Yeah.
And thankfully they did talk me out of it and made me realize, hey, this could go really, really wrong. And anyway, waiting, I actually ended up cutting the rent in half. In October of 2020 is when I reopened a location that had closed down for pennies. He left everything. He abandoned the store. All the equipment, everything was in place. So I walked in. I think I spent 20 grand cash just to revamp the place up, upgrade a few things, get some staff in place, and it turned out that's probably been my biggest hit so far, was that second location.
That one, where was that one at?
This was in Santa Rosa, California. First one was in a town called Petaluma, about an hour north of San Francisco.
I'm not super familiar with my California cities out there.
Yeah, hour north of the Bay Area, stuff like that. Kind of Napa, Sonoma, wine country.
I do know where wine country's out there.
I was
I know where it's at.
Yeah. So, yeah, did that, and then let's see. When I turned 26, I bought the Firehouse Sub store.
So let's back up.
Yeah.
I want
on the timeline.
Yeah, I'm gonna inject.
I'm gonna also inject.
Okay.
That was 2018, and then your second location you acquired
What
year? 2020.
2020. Yeah.
2020, and then Firehouse in what year?
Firehouse was 2022.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to track, because that's what the reason I
You got
asked
your
for.
whiteboard over there?
The reason I asked
Mapping
for
it out,
what
buddy?
year, because I know it was leading up to COVID.
Yeah.
So I want to see, like, you have your feet under you for essentially
We're gonna have
2
Dre
years.
over there
Yeah.
that just
Until you
helps
go
everybody
straight in
know
where it's
what
like-
your things are.
Picking up pennies on the dollar, I feel like that felt like you hit the lottery.
It did. It was still a risk. I did a short-term lease because we didn't know. In October 2020, we had no idea, especially in California. I mean, I heard stories from what it was like in Missouri. In California, it was tough. We had some very strict regulations, and my one store I had at the time was very heavily, just under a microscope with the health department and as it should be during those times. We didn't know. So it was still a risk. It was a low investment risk in the grand scheme of things versus spending $300,000-$400,000 on building a new store. So I was comfortable doing it. It worked, thankfully. I mean, of course, when the economy comes back and the state lets you have people in your store, stuff like that, that usually helps. But yeah, that's, I guess, just kind of how that.
So when you go from one location, I think a lot of times in ownership, you talk about the energy that you carry, the culture. You have that with one location you moved it to.
Yeah.
That was something that we encountered at the beginning of this year, that I've always kept people in one spot. We've never done work from home. We've never done any of that. And it's like I'm a huge culture person, energy that's in the space. When you go to 2 locations, I know location number 1, you get this buy-in from everyone. You're working side by side with them. You go to location number 2. How do you retain that?
So I actually was fortunate. Actually all of the staff at the time from the first one came up and helped train the new staff at the second one. So they already kind of knew, and a lot of them worked at both stores. They liked to change up and just, because the dream scenario about that place was both stores were 20 minutes apart. It's hard to be, and I lived right in the middle. So my commute was minimal, but they would like to work at both locations, and I would pay them extra to do that because some lived farther south, some lived farther north. Say, hey, for an extra X amount of dollars an hour, if you want to kind of be a shift leader or manager type of person at both locations, you have the option to do that. So, but like you said earlier, this was where I started to work less in the business and started to work on. And this was probably the first time I started to understand that kind of hierarchy and delegation was big for me. I still am not great all the times at delegating. I just like to just do it myself because I want to do it right. And I had to learn to start letting some stuff go and trusting the people that I had trained them my way for a reason. But yeah, it wasn't too bad again. We were really fortunate. We had a great staff, great people to train, long-standing employees that were right there next to me. And of course, I was working long as well at both stores, but yeah.
I do kind of like the idea where people were like hybriding back between.
Yeah.
So probably put a lot of familiar faces and kind of started creating that hierarchy.
Yeah, and what we saw was too, because both of these stores were one was in an outlet mall and one was in an indoor regional mall. A lot of the stores you see, like your Nikes, your Under Armours, stuff like that, were also at both malls, and a lot of those employees would work at both locations as well. So there was a lot of camaraderie that went, even just with my staff, but the whole mall. In a sense, we would see people at one mall one day on a Tuesday, and then Thursday we'd see them at the second mall. So the whole environment, not just my stores, was positive in that regards.
So I'm stealing this one out of the Nike and Under Armour handbook here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Which
it works.
I think we've had a lot of kind of overlap in our locations where I knew when we were going to move on to having a second location, it was going to be fully ran by people that had been sitting in the location number
Right.
1, and it wasn't taking on a whole new staff from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
So I do think that is something we haven't encountered. I know there's a lot of business owners that we've had come on that they say that it's a restarting the fight sometimes.
Yeah, it can be, but for us it was just consistency. Like if you knew that you were working at either one of my stores, it was going to be the same type of vibe. We didn't treat people differently at this one versus the other one. That's just really what we were going for. And I'm so thankful for that first staff, because to have them along for that ride to go to the second one, they were excited too.
Yeah.
They wanted to try something different because we've been operating that first location for 18 months at the time. And, college, high school kids don't typically stay at a place of work for 18 months. So it was nice for them to have a second place to work, but not really a second place
How
to
long
work.
were you guys at
if that makes sense.
B-Dubs?
I was actually there for 4 years. I
he
trucked
was
it
in
through. Yeah.
Well, this guy's a workaholic, though. Him and his wife both. He was in Fidel, but there were so many times where it's like, Nate's not here. It's like, you just knew he was working on something.
So you were at B-Dubs and you had a dental
Kelly's,
company?
and I worked at Kelly's Pub.
So yeah, he was a bartender at the main bar we all went to, and you had detailing, and you had beat. Like, you just knew this guy was always working at all times. And so it's like, he's also the friend you can call where you're like, hey, there's this one thing I really need help with, and it's really shitty, and no one's gonna want to help me. You just know if you call Nate, like, he's gonna be there and he's gonna have a good attitude about it. And I'm like, thank God I got a friend like Nate, because most other people would be like, I'm not helping you with that. Like, figure it out.
The thing now is hanging TVs. That's what a lot of people call me for.
So when we got our new office, we had like 8 TVs in there. I was like, and they're just, I've gotten to where I hung all TVs in my dad's house. I hang TVs. This time actually, I'm paying one of our contracts for doing all the new frame TVs in our house. So it's like, I'm not hanging those.
Yeah, I enjoyed work. I like earning money, having some pride of completing the job. That started way back in high school with the detailing stuff. I used to flip tires. I'd go to tire places, and the tires when you get yours replaced.
So I flipped wheels and tires.
Yes,
and we
I did.
did.
Yep, same thing.
I would have.
Did you guys just become best friends?
Yeah,
We're in the garage.
Yeah,
We're in the garage if you want to do karate.
Right.
I actually took that for 4 years. That's wild.
Mountain tires
We
on
too.
usually, so absolutely.
Yeah,
I
I'd
made
sit
a lot of
there.
money. Didn't
I'd find dealers and stuff, and I had 2 guys that would buy, and I'd find other dealers that were taking them off.
Yep.
I'd tell them like, hey, I got cash. Like, what do you want for them? They'd send me photos of them, and I had a buddy that had a flatbed, and I would buy them by like huge sets.
Yep.
I'd be like, they'd be like, I got 40 sets up here. I'm like, all right.
Oh, man, you did it bigger than me. I just
I was-
did whatever I could fit in my truck. I was taking.
We'd show up with like 40-foot flatbed, and I'm like, I'll give you 6, 7, 8 grand for all, depending on what they were.
Right.
And then I'd just like figure out what it cost per like set was, and then we'd go to the car wash, we'd unload them all, we'd power wash them all.
Yep.
We'd clean them, we'd tire shine them, then we'd load them all back up. And I would call another guy and I'd say, hey, this is what I got, 12 grand, you can take them all.
Yep.
And then he's like, I'm sending photos of all of them, they're all like cleaned up, all nice and good photos, and I'd sit there and flip those all the time.
Yep.
And that was actually first 2 years out of college. I did really well in the car space. My day job. My brother and I would clean cars from 8 to midnight, Monday through Thursday. And I'd flip wheels and tires on the weekend, also while learning marketing on the weekends.
Right.
And then Sunday we clean the place.
Yeah, but we worked Saturdays all day. Also, we had 12-hour days Monday through Saturday.
Yep.
And it was, I flipped these wheels and tires all the time. And it was like, that was my Eddie V's and Capital money.
Yeah.
For years. And people were like sitting there, like, how do you go out to dinner all the time? I was like, flip these wheels and tires.
Yep. Those Michelins back there? Yeah, that's dinner. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
But I will say that for a long time I think it's a great trait and it's a curse all in one, because you do have that mentality that you can just do it all,
Yeah.
and it comes to a point in business that logistically it just doesn't make sense anymore. That realistically, I was talking to a client today and he was like, hey, just so you know, he has a huge operation. He's like, you won't really be dealing with me. I was like, well, you're not going to be dealing with me either. I was like, I go, if I'm injected into this, there's a problem.
Right.
I go, if I inject myself in, I mess the system up because the system was built without me. And it's like, we have to have the systematical side for marketing, for content, for sales, for everything else. And it's like, I still help a little bit on like where I feel like things need to be adjusted, how we can make it better, and making product and service better. But most of the time that's from a full internal side. I never inject myself into the external movement of MMG anymore.
Right.
And if the system's built without you in it, you inject yourself, then you're messed up every time.
Right. Yeah, I did run into that a lot. When I would fly back out to college. So I moved back in 21 while still owning those locations, and the first girl that I had oversaw both of them. And when I would go back out, I'd make a visit it was once a month, it was once a quarter, once a year, or twice a year. And I've noticed I would try to jump in, and she'd be like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of messing up my system here. It's like, oh, that kind of hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just, it is hard, and I like to work, like to get it done, jump in, help. I can't sit still sometimes. And
I have focus where my work is more well spent on developing people. That if we have 40 people and I can sit down with them over a month and I can help optimize everyone to another hour a day, capitalize on another 40 hours in a day every day. There's no mathematical equation that gives me 40 hours in a day that I can do 40 hours of work. And it's like one day we're going to have 200-300 employees and it'll be the same thing. And it's like, I look at the movement of what we do in a day now, it used to take me 2-3 months. Like, just because everyone's so optimized in their respective areas, they do it so much better than what I did. And it's like, I sit and look at our movement in a week is equivalent to what used to take me a year.
Right.
Year one of MMG, we've done more this week from Monday to Wednesday than year one of the MMG.
Oh wow, that's wild.
Like when you look at it, I'm like literally driving home today thinking about like, wow, I really sucked.
Yeah.
I was like, I sucked really bad. Like that, I'm looking at, and at that point we thought we were busy. Like, but it's just levels of the game.
Right.
So when you say you moved back, why did you move back?
In September of 20, my dad lost his battle with cancer and COVID together just before his 50th birthday. Yeah, I'm an only child. it was hell on earth for myself and my mother. And I think at the end of 20, or maybe it was the beginning of 21, girlfriend at the time, now wife, and I were kind of talking, like, I was like, hey, I've kind of got these 2 stores running relatively well without me. What do you think about going back to Missouri? Because that's something we wanted to do. Our original plan was to do it for 5 years and come back. There was no part of us that wanted to stay in California, and both our families are here. Wanted to raise our family.
She's from Savannah also?
She's from St. Joe, so same area. That's all of our families up that way. So, looking at the numbers and logistics, talking to I had 2 girls at the time, kind of overseeing both locations now that worked in tandem. I was like, hey, you guys interested in leveling up? And here's what I'm gonna do, and we made it work. So yeah, I moved back in 21, and then as we were looking to move back, I was looking for a business in this area. And honestly, kind of a serial entrepreneur, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was looking for a deal. I was looking for a bargain. Came across this firehouse, and it was priced very well. And it was still, 21 was still kind of tail into COVID. So things were in that industry kind of, you could pick them up at the right price kind of thing. Was able to write a check for that store, and that's kind of how it got there. I really wasn't looking for Firehouse. I'd never even eaten there. I heard of the name. I kind of knew, what they stood for.
I will say it's a top 3 favorite sandwich spot.
Yeah, I like their food, and that's just not just from me owning it. I really enjoyed their food. There's one close to where we used to live in California. I was like, I'm gonna go try it before we sign this purchase agreement, and really damn good. So
yeah,
I remember asking you because we were on the phone one day, or I don't remember where we were talking about it at some point, and I was like, so you're going with Firehouse, huh? And he was like in the process of acquiring it, and I'm like, what'd you like about it? He's like, sandwiches are pretty good. You tried them? And I was like, that's it? Like you were sold on buying a store just because like you went and had a sandwich one day and you thought the sandwich was good? And he's like, pretty much, yeah. This is also the guy that on spring break would just wake up in the morning, go to McDonald's, buy 20 McDoubles, and that was his food for the day. Like, his stomach runs his life.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it actually makes sense that you bought a place just because you liked their sandwich that you had that day.
Hey, you got to believe in the product that you're selling.
So Rocky Mountain is kind of that same way. I'm not a huge sweet guy, but their stuff is really good, and I can't.
You're talking about Auntie Anne's. I'm
Exactly.
behind that.
Yes. And I can't.
Love their pretzel.
Yeah.
Those little hot dogs in the pretzel.
Yeah.
Like
That's
the big
gonna make
leg,
the
but
clip.
the little one. Yeah, those.
Yep.
Every time I'm in the line, pass one. Ask them if you have a problem.
Well, they smell so good too. You want to buy, you have to get one.
But I feel like they got something that pumps that out to make it smell
Yeah.
better.
Oh, 100%.
It's like a casino.
Just a big old
where they
thing
just
back
pump
there.
They pump the
oxygen.
oxygen in. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to believe in the product to want to operate it. So I wanted to make sure I liked it. And again, the main point was the price point. I saw it would have been a high reward, low risk type of situation. I was very comfortable going after it.
So you come back, take on Firehouse, with both the Rocky Mountains running. Where are we at? Time frame on that? 21.
Why are you asking the time frame, dude? Do you want to ask his shoe size?
Well, I think I was up to an 11
Yeah.
at this time. Beat me a little bit.
Great growth spurt.
He's I'm currently a size 12, so.
Yeah.
He's over here with the red yarn on the wall with the photos.
Next week we're just gonna turn off Dre's mic because he's just interrupting people.
It's about that golf cart apparently.
Yeah, something.
You have so much power.
Yeah, I know. He sat a little bit higher now, so he has to say on the podcast. But so we're like game 21. We have Firehouse. How is kind of operations looking over now? Once again, a third location
Right.
that you're operating.
Yep. So the Firehouse was actually quite a long transition. I didn't take over until June of 22. Went under contract in late 21. Long story. The company that owns Burger King bought Firehouse in the middle of me coming on, so there were some delays that occurred in that area. And plus, I honestly wasn't in a big rush. We had to get moved back and settled in. I wasn't going to try to take on a new concept without being close. So yeah, at June of 22 is when I took over.
So if you're waiting that long on a contract, was there a lot of things that were happening internally, business-wise, or was it kind of just like flatlined?
It
And,
kind of just flatlined because
it wasn't like any, because I feel like a lot of times when we're looking at something from a contract standpoint, like I've had people that are like, hey, can I buy in and then pay in like over the next 6 months? I'm like, no.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
like, 6 months from now with what we add on, I go that percentage there is going to look vastly different than what it does today.
right.
So it's like, that's why I didn't know what that kind of, coming out of COVID, is that store on an uptick, and then they're like, hey, we're seeing something different price tag wise now, or was it just kind of it flatlined until you took it?
It just kind of, actually, his sales dipped a little bit in 21, and that was, everyone from our program had their best year in 21 for a multitude of reasons. People were back outside, had the stimmies, they were spending the money.
Stimmy on it. I didn't get a stimmy, but
Yeah.
we were actually at the casino when everyone's stimmies hit, because casinos like just opened back up.
Oh,
And
God.
we were there for someone's
Hey,
birthday.
essential, man. That was an essential place.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of all places,
They,
alive.
they found out everyone was getting those checks, and they're like, "Quick, let's open the door."
Yeah. And we were there, and I'm like, oh my god! Like we're trying to get on the floor, and we're like in a 40-person line. It's for someone's birthday. For Logan's birthday.
It's in March.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, March, and everyone, and we're sitting there, and then we asked the bouncer, like when we get up to like, they're like, why is there so many people here? Like, all them free checks came out today.
Oh, man.
And we're like, what? And then Dre opens up his phone, like, oh,
Yeah.
oh god, and then they
Like
like,
$1,800. I
Yeah.
got free money tonight.
That's right.
yes, they're all opening. I'm like opening mine. I'm like, I don't even have a job.
Right, yeah.
It's like, and they're going off last year's
Right.
taxes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess I didn't get one. I was like, but yeah, it was.
I did
That's
what
what the
everyone that got a free stimmy did. I went to the casino, then I bought a 65-inch TV. I'm like, and money's gone.
Yeah,
That was selfish, bro. I just donated all mine to the casino.
Donated to the
Look at you.
casino.
yeah.
I'm gonna start. I'm
Charitable
gonna start
man.
using my birthday.
You guys have it.
But so 22, you get contracting done,
Yeah.
and what is taking over that store look like?
That was a lot more. You've got, I mean, at a restaurant, you've got 15 to 20 team members. It was not well run. There was a lot of, just a lot of, I don't know if I want to say riffraff, but just a lot of things that needed to be done. I regretted it for the first couple months. I remember telling my wife that, I was like, man, this sucks. Now I see why the store was so cheap. But again, sticking it out, I found a few guys there that I kind of trusted to run with, said, hey, if you want your life to be easier, we need to rebuild the culture here. And here's what it's going to look like. It's going to be 80-hour weeks for a few weeks. And they were all on board, and I mean, we got it done. Now we're kind of at that same point. I've got, I think, 8 of my now 12 staff have been there for over a year. And again, in the restaurant world, that's relatively unheard of. A lot of people come for a month or two and then leave. So it was a lot of work. It was some hard work getting that up and going. And especially, I've got 2 businesses in California still that I've got to fly out here and there and check on and deal with
Do you
problems.
still have those up there?
No, I did. I sold those in December of 23.
Okay.
So
What was the reason for selling?
just tired of doing it from California. Bought in pretty low on both of them. Was able to sell a number that I really enjoyed. And California's getting tough to operate in. Wage increases very sharply. Regulations are tightening in some areas as well. It just makes it really difficult on business owners, especially if you're not there. Kind of thing.
I definitely think it's a very, just looking from the outside in, is a very strange economic area to really run and operate as a business owner to get the, I mean, you have to go into a crazy high-end luxury side and
Yeah.
charge astronomical numbers to be able to support what the wages are that they're pushing. Because it's hard too when you're out there, and I mean, what the cost of living as a whole
Right.
has just climbed so much. Well, I went out to LA a few years ago when I was out there, just like what everything costs. I feel like we do really well here.
Yeah.
And I was out there and I'm like, I feel kind of broke here.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
it's
this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, why is just everything so expensive?
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know why somebody would want to live here.
Yeah.
I was like, somebody that makes anywhere close to what we make here in Missouri, like, can live a great life. And I went to these people's house, and I'm at this house, long story, but we're at these people's house. They have college students living there, and I'm like, we're in like the hood. Like, I thought the hood in my head. They have like late 90s, like Explorer and F-150, like neither car worth over $500, like rough ass cars, and we're sitting there. I'm like feeling bad that somebody has to live like this, and I'm talking to the people that own the house. They're probably upper 40s, early 50s, and I was like, what's some like we start getting on the topic of real estate or something. We're in a $1.4 million house.
Yeah, it's insane.
My house is 10 times that house.
Yep.
It's nowhere near 1.4.
Yep.
Like, I'm just like, yeah, they actually have a program that if you have college students live here, they can help you qualify to buy. And like, we can't afford to have car payments also with a house out here. I'm like, why?
Yeah, or voluntarily choosing to live.
Why
that
do
way.
this, dudes?
Right. But the weather.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing I heard living out there. Which I mean, I get. Where we used to live, it was beautiful, but
I went to San Diego once, and I mean, San Diego I thought was pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's between 65 and 70 degrees, 360
Right.
days a year. Like,
Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
That was pretty nice.
I will say I like San Diego way more than I liked LA.
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, San Diego for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seemed a little bit more reasonable too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Bay Area is
yeah,
absurd.
I bet.
Yeah. Our little 1,200 square foot duplex, not a dump, but not the Taj Mahal, was $3,000 a month, and that was an hour north of San Francisco, and that was 2019. So, yeah, it's insane.
That is now $5,000.
Yeah, probably
No,
easily.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, easily.
So when you go to sell the Rocky Mountains, how did you go about doing that? Like, what did that look like? Did you go on the market with them? Did you have other people within the industry line that are like, hey, I'm looking to sell? People are wanting to buy higher operating ones. Like, what's that process look like for you on taking a company to market?
Right. Well, for something like a franchise where there's multiple locations, the first thing I try to do is go to current owners that are looking to expand, that are already familiar with the system, they're already approved through the franchisor, typically have the capital, and say, hey, I'm looking to exit. Are you guys interested? It's usually a quicker deal that way. Unfortunately, I was the farthest in California. It was me, and then Portland, Oregon was the next Rocky. So didn't have a whole lot of options to do that. The closest other owner at the time was in Lake Tahoe, which is about 2.5 hours where we used to live, and they weren't interested in going that far. So we did go to market. I used a broker to kind of help get some leads. And the main reason I wanted to use a broker was because of California's weird laws. I just wanted to make sure that we were dotting our I's and crossing our T's. I did not want to mess up and then have to pay for it down the road. So I did spend a little extra on commission, but I wanted to do it right. Selling a franchise, I would say, is probably easier in some ways because it's a recognizable name with a system in place. You've got your vendors in place, all that stuff is set. What makes it harder is you have to qualify in their eyes. So like if you wanted to sell your company, there's probably not as many stringent guidelines that for a buyer, but you have to have a certain net worth, you have to have a certain liquidity stake, you have to have your debt to asset ratio has to be, all the things. You got to check all these boxes. So that's what took a while. It actually took almost 2 years to sell. Yeah, and again, we were still tinkering around in the COVID times. I listed them at the end of 21. 22, things kind of came, the market as a whole went down. All the stimulus stuff kind of quit. That's when the inflation stuff really kicked off, especially in California. So it was hard to try to get people to buy at that time, especially when interest rates start climbing up as well. People that use the debt to finance the stores weren't attracted to a 10% SBA loan. So, which actually the guy that bought it did an 11% SBA loan. So,
Yeah.
If only he was a year faster.
Right. So it did take a while, and there's definitely some hoops to jump through, but that's just the franchising world.
Yeah.
And companies like McDonald's, you have to have millions
Because
ready to go.
I have a buddy that has 38 locations in the McDonald's space,
Yeah,
and he's the largest operator in the Midwest area.
yeah,
But it's just like they have so much buying power now in the space that they're looking to buy more and more and more. But it's
right.
once they start pressing market, it's like, but their stores operate so well, they've just figured out so that there are underperforming McDonald's out there too, just from an operational standpoint. That he goes in on these like 2 to 4 store groups,
Mm-hmm.
and their franchises are just worth so much.
Yep.
That
Hard.
and there's sometimes you have some older operators that are just like they're kind of done.
Yep.
And I think that is the thing that's kind of just wild in like today's world, that there's so many businesses out there that just have elderly owners that have kids that just aren't interested in having any part of it. And it's like the amount of even like seller financed businesses that take place, like the seller financing in our world right now.
Yep.
That you look at just in the blue collar world from, I mean, the trades, like you look at the average guy that owns a plumbing company or the average person that owns a electrical company, and it's like even the McDonald's, like my buddy's 32 years old on McDonald's stuff. He's like, a lot of these are just older
Yep.
operators that they're just kind of, their kids don't want anything to do with it, and they want to offload them.
Yep. And food's becoming tough with rising costs. You can only raise your prices so much before you start. I mean, the margins, and again, I'm still new in this world compared to the older owners, but the margins don't seem to be even what they were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because of this rising costs in general. Your wages are going up, your food costs are going up, your insurance is going up,
Yeah.
and you can't charge $20 for a sub. No one's going to come in and be a customer at that point. So
Exactly.
you've got to find other ways to reduce your costs or increase your sales to offset your labor and your occupancy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's also where you start building into value points, you start building into increased product on what it may look like, where I think that sometimes, like, I think you guys have a much more like luxury sub than most places.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's okay if it's a few dollars more.
Right. And that's what they remind us too. Like we compete with Subway, but we don't compete with Subway 100%. We're like Jersey Mike's, those are kind of our main competitors that offer the higher price subs, and our customers know that. But they know when they come in, they're getting a really good sandwich. And I mean, I can tell you firsthand, our ingredients are much better than what go into your lower priced, more, I guess you want to say, budget or economical food options.
Because I'll say Ricky's a big Subway guy. I'm not.
I was just gonna say, don't say that too loud. Lauren's in the next room.
Uh-oh.
Lauren.
And I have
But then
Lauren come jump off the side of the golf cart.
But Lauren also did say that after she has her baby, the very first thing she wants is a hook and ladder from Firehouse. So I think that's a great.
Let me know when time comes, I'll help you out.
Perfect.
I got
He
it.
will deliver it to you.
But it's the same thing with, like, you look at the Jimmy John's model, like it was more of just a speed thing.
Right. Yeah,
Like
freaky fast.
Yeah. And it was like the whole thing was marketed on speed. Like, and it was just something that you can hyper focus on someone's problem. That we got in the marketing space. I saw a problem that marketing agencies didn't hold their own media. I was like, we just hold all our own media. It's gonna make us way different than the next guy.
Right.
It was just crazy, like how much weight that held, and it was the communication. And it's just hyper focusing on what the problem is that the business owner has and how we fix that is how our product just keeps getting better. And it's like, I look at Jimmy John's came out and just identified a singular problem, and they said, hey, let's just beat that to a pulp. And it's like same thing where you guys have more of a luxury side sandwich, like of it, just owning that side of it, just saying it's like, hey, it's not the same.
Right.
And
At the same time, it also goes to a good cause. So I think that's like Firehouse in general, what they do for firefighters is huge.
That's probably the second part of the better quality sub is that we actually participate in the communities.
Yeah, so in that instance, I would be more willing to go there if there's one in Kearney.
Right.
Hint, hint. But I would be more willing to go there because one, I do enjoy it better. I'm not a sandwich guy whatsoever. But I would
like, I really enjoy it. I actually hate sandwiches. But
It was a whole.
I do. But like you guys have I'm not even gonna try to botch it. It's the one with like steak on it.
The steak and cheese.
Steak and cheese.
Wow,
Yeah.
botch
I get that.
What, don't
every
botch
time. But like I said, I don't eat
botch
sandwiches
the
often
Right,
because
right.
it's
No,
not.
no,
Yeah.
Right.
What has happened to him on the golf cart
that
tonight?
really exotic name. You're like,
No one who thought to make this, but what's happened to you over there?
Kind of save your antics, okay? I'm about to drive this golf cart right out here, okay?
So anyways, now we're to 2025.
Yeah. So right now, just Firehouse.
Yeah, just the one location after selling off the Rocky Mountain stores.
So do you feel a little stress off your shoulders, just kind of operate one thing?
I do, and sometimes it's
You
more
hate-
stressful.
You
if
hate
that
more,
makes sense.
more TVs?
Huh?
Yeah.
No, I need a break from that. Sometimes I almost feel like when I did when I got my second Rocky location in California, in some ways it was almost easier because you can spread the workload across multiple staff, your inventory, your equipment. Like if one piece of equipment breaks down at a store, then you just use the other equipment from your other store to get you by. With one location, if you lose your main refrigerator, your slicer, whatever, you're just down. And then that happened to me once. We lost our slicer for a week, and I had to go use another store's slicer, take all my stuff there, and one of my big Yetis.
Of course, it was in
That's
the
why
end.
he's got all
Yeah.
the coolers.
And then had to slice it and drive it back. I did that every day for a week. And whereas if I had multiple locations, say, hey, can you guys slice a little extra? I'll pick it up, take it to the store, kind of thing. So you can spread your problems out a little more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So-
and I also think as we've progressed, I'm just saying from my kind of experience with it, as more is taking place, those problems are spread out across more people,
Right.
where it does feel like I'm not near as stressed as I used to be.
Exactly.
But it's like I feel like I've developed the right people that one of my main rules is we can all identify problems. It's the easiest thing to do. I mean, everyone all the way up to totem pole can go into a business and say, hey, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. Don't come to me without a solution. So once we started implementing that, it was amazing how people would think about something for their solution, and they'd end up coming up with their own solution. Never even came to me.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I should thought about that. And we could do this, this, and this, and fix it. And
Yep.
I'm like, if you really come up with that solution you're really not sure about, then come to me, and then I'll say either green light or I'll say, hey, did you think about it this way or this way or this way?
That's exactly the same approach I take to
But
this stuff. Yeah.
It was crazy how fast it just kind of started working itself out, and I'm like, does anybody have any problems with that?
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah.
Talk about it. But I think it's the right thing as you keep progressing. The Rocky Mountain, I think you probably got to a spot that once again that second location you start working on the business.
Yeah.
And then Firehouse probably kind of injected you back into it.
Yeah.
They were
Absolutely.
probably on that workout to get back to that outside state
Yeah.
of looking in.
Yeah. Well, I would say it probably took me 6 to 8 months to get back to that with the Firehouse, because I noticed, like you said, when I went back out to California and they would say, hey, this happened, here's what we did about it. And I would do what you said, great, or maybe next time let's try this. But it would surprise me the amount of stuff that went on that I didn't even know about when it was just me at the time when I first got going. It was all the problems, all the issues were coming straight to me. And it was like that at Firehouse too, it started, because a lot of people I hired, so they were just used to coming to me. But after a while, it's, hey, guide these issues to your leadership, your manager, and then they can take care. And then if it's something big, of course, then yes, you can come up to me, and then we'll address whatever the problem is.
But I think it's the same thing that happens with kids in our space nowadays, when their parents take care of every single problem for them. They don't learn. They don't figure out how to progress forward.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a habit. Like the car space, I actually built my own issue there because I just helped out the sales guys on everything that they did. Where they just got to where the norm, it was I'm just gonna stay.
Yeah.
And that's where finally, after I got out of that, where it's I knew middle of 24, I was gonna pull back a lot. But I'm I just have to let people fall, and I'm gonna have to let them learn.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna lose some accounts from it. I know it's gonna kind of go through take a little bit of a weird space, but it's gonna build us stronger to move forward.
Yeah.
But until we do it, we're never gonna. All these problems can't come to me every day.
Right. And it's well intentioned too, you want to help, but like you said, in the end, you're harming yourself and the people involved when you don't even mean to be doing it.
Yeah, and if you're trying to build something for scale long term, when you're thinking of term of things, when you're injecting yourself, you're thinking of a short term fix for today. Most time, injecting yourself is a short term, fast, quickest fix.
Right.
When I've been around just really high level business operators, my buddy that has the McDonald's, he goes, I'm never in the equation of fixing something.
He has 18 to 24, 2,500 employees.
It's 1,800.
At any,
I could not
given moment.
imagine.
And he says that, I'm okay, say that one more time.
Yeah. But I couldn't fathom.
That's what I'm sitting there, and it's one, you don't know everyone's name.
Yeah.
And I feel that's the point when it's you really start to take a step back. It's you don't know you don't know a guy at this location, like, or anyone at that location besides like a person. But I feel like that would just be weird in an instance where it's like you grow to that skill. Like Jeff Bezos doesn't know probably anyone outside of his
he
50
probably knows
people.
every driver.
Yeah.
No, but like in that instance, it's like
Do you know
I feel
what
like
he
that's
does?
where like that growth side, like I feel like we talk about growth, but it's like when you don't know all the people that work actually for your business, like I want to know what that would feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be a point to get to where it's like that's what I want to get to where it's like, do I always try to make a point? Yes, but it's like you get to that point, it's like there's no way someone can know 18 to 2,400 people that are operating your businesses.
Well, and even when I would fly back to California and they would hire somebody, there were numerous times I would walk into one of my stores and they'd, hey, welcome in. And I would just pretend to be a customer for a little while. And then
Let's see how your processes are.
Yeah. And I'd order stuff, I would buy something for myself and I would eat it. And I would walk behind the counter and I would be like, hey, good job. I'm Nate. I emailed you all your tax paperwork.
So that's great. Get on the other side of the counter.
Right. I mean, it was kind of fun, honestly, but it was weird because there was the time that I was involved in everything to know a little bit about each team member. I think that's what helped with retention, was showing an actual interest in my employees, knowing something about them, knowing how their English class was going, those kinds of things to show that I cared. At Buffalo Wild Wings, sometimes we were just a cog. We were just a piece to fit. No one really cared. Are you doing your job? That's just about.
Was Alex doing his job?
Alex was very good at his job. He picked it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
We're gonna start having Alex make wings for everybody at lunch.
Oh, put me behind the bar, coach.
So, our own wing guy at the office now. But no, I definitely think. I mean, we could sit here and chat business all day,
Yeah,
all day,
for sure.
and it's very cool hearing the story and just. I don't think we've had somebody on that just like kind of moved across country, did something, came back, sold it. Like, I think that's just. I don't know. I think such a cool story at the end of your journey. Lifetime's done. You wrote the whole story. Like that, I think is a cool start to business. Something that no ties to it really back here.
Yeah.
Just like you go out and you did it, made it happen, and
I feel like
came back to
your
Pirates.
story is some people's full story.
Yeah, and some it is. The people that are in our program, where they're at now is their home. We've got a large, I don't say large, but a pretty notable group from Missouri Western and Colorado right now. That's just where their opportunities took them. We've got some that live, we still have one in California. We've got, oh man, I mean, I could run down the map. They're all over the country. Some choose to come back, some don't. It just kind of depends. But we knew it would have been a long stretch for us to stay in California long term.
Yeah.
Now, if we got sent to Florida or Texas, then it might have been a tough sell to get me home.
That'd be a lot easier to sell now.
So then the next step is, what are you going to add to the portfolio next?
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's probably not going to be food. Probably not going to be a restaurant.
Diversifying outside the restaurant.
Yeah. I would like to work in something a little more of a kind of a professional. I'll knock this over. Like a more professional mindset. Restaurant stuff it's fast paced at all times. That kind of thing, especially operating a higher volume QSR type restaurant. It's work. It's
Yeah.
work. So, not sure. Just have to see. I'm always looking for a deal though. That's
Just looking for
sure.
deals. So if you
What are you
got-
offering?
Yeah.
Pennies on the dollar.
Right.
I'm interested.
All right.
Yep. So, no, California is great. Got it tabbed right here. I'll never forget our time out there. That's where our lives got started. Applewood traded for the world.
Very cool.
I loved it.
No, you got a hell of a story, and unless Alex has done halfway decent bringing on some of these Missouri Western people, but
Who's next? That's the question.
We got a couple lined up actually.
Missouri Western people?
he's got to be running out first. There's no way Alex
He's gonna be running out of friends.
He could have only worked at Buffalo Wild Wings with that many people.
You can only sell so many wings.
Yeah.
Right? You can only sell so many.
Yeah,
Bud
he's just
Lights.
had this plot of getting his whole Buffalo Wild Wings crew on the podcast. But,
Oh God.
No,
Oh, man.
no.
I don't know if I'll do that.
well, I very much appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me.
Great insights, and I always like chatting with business owners, and that's why we started the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
That's M3 Podcast. Peace. Where did Dre get off interrupting everyone in that podcast?
He likes the.
How many people did I interrupt besides you?
All of us.
Who did I interrupt? Raise your hand if I interrupted you.
I think when mom and dad
So
fight.
just you.
I think when mom and dad
Yes,
fight.
you.
If I didn't interrupt you, I'd just